You ever look at a piece of equipment and realize it's actually smarter than you? I spent 3 hours yesterday afternoon trying to figure out why my battery bank was stone cold dead, only to realize I'd wired the charge controller backward. To the battery, I was basically trying to shove a Thanksgiving dinner through a straw that didn't exist.
So the master craftsman was outsmarted by a plastic box with 4 terminals? That's comforting for the rest of us. But seriously, Tiger, you've been obsessed with this solar thing lately. I thought the shop ran on grit and overpriced grid power. Why the sudden pivot to harvesting sunbeams?
It's not just about the electric bill, though seeing that number drop is like finding a 20 in an old pair of work pants. It's the independence. I like the idea that if the grid decides to take a nap during a summer storm, I can still finish a cabinet door without my shop vac gasping for air and dying. But man, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors talk in the solar world. I had to strip away a lot of nonsense to get to the brass tacks of what actually makes a workshop hum on solar.
Okay, let's strip it down then. If I'm a total novice, which let's be honest, in this department I am, where does the electricity actually start? I see the panels, I see the batteries. It feels like a middle school science fair project that grew up and got expensive.
That's exactly what it is. Think of it like a plumbing system, because that's the only way my brain can process electrons without shorting out. You've got four big players. First, the solar panels. They're your rain collectors. They grab the energy. Then you've got the Cartby charge controller, which is like the float valve in your toilet. It makes sure you don't overflow the tank. The batteries are the actual water tank holding the juice for later. And finally, the inverter.
Let me guess. The inverter is the translator?
Bingo. Most shop tools are hungry for 120 volt AC power, the stuff in your wall. But batteries are like a different language. They speak 12 volt DC. The inverter is the guy standing in the middle, translating direct current into alternating current, so your drill press doesn't think it's being fed garbage.
I looked at some panels online this morning. Some are deep blue and look like they're made of glitter, and others are matte black and look like a stealth bomber. Is that just a fashion choice for my roof?
I wish. The blue ones are polycrystalline. They're like the budget-friendly plywood of the solar world. They do the job, they're cheaper to make, but they need a bit more space to get the same results. The black ones, monocrystalline, are the solid walnut. They're more efficient, they handle heat better, and they look slick, but your wallet will definitely feel the pinch. If you've got a massive barn roof, the blue ones are fine. If you're trying to power a shed with the footprint of a phone booth, go black.
Fair enough. But here's the thing that scares people. The math. I saw you earlier with that calculator, looking like you were trying to crack a safe. Volts, amps, watts. It sounds like a law firm I want no part of.
It's simpler if you look at it as a bucket of water. Volts is the pressure pushing the water through the hose. Amps is the actual volume of water flowing. And watts, that's just the total amount of work getting done. If you multiply the pressure by the flow, volts times amps, you get your watts. I had to sit down and actually catalog my shop. It's a reality check. You look at a toaster and think, it's tiny. But a toaster is a heat-eating monster. It'll pull 1,200 watts. My little LED shop lights, they're barely sipping 20 watts. If you try to run a high-draw table saw on a system designed for a few light bulbs, you're going to hear a very expensive pop and then sit in the dark wondering where your life went wrong.
I can see you now, standing in the dark, holding a half-toasted bagel. So the lesson is, don't just buy a solar kit and hope for the best. You have to actually know what your tools need.
Precisely. You got to be the bookkeeper for your own electrons. I tell people to start with the must-haves. Lights, maybe a battery charger for your cordless tools, a laptop. Those are the easy wins. When you start talking about 3 horsepower dust collectors, well, now you're talking about a battery bank that weighs as much as a small car and costs more than my first truck.
Speaking of batteries, please tell me I can just use the one for my old Honda Civic that's sitting in the garage.
Don't you dare. That's the quickest way to turn a project into a paperweight. A car battery is like a sprinter. It gives one massive burst of energy to turn the engine over and then relies on the alternator. It hates being drained. You want to pass out deep cycle battery. They're the marathon runners. They're designed to be drained down slowly and charged back up over and over again.
And I'm guessing there's a good, better, best there too?
Oh, you bet. You've got lead acid, the old school, heavy, grumpy ones. They're cheap, but you can only use about half the energy in them before they start getting damaged. Then you've got lithium. Those are the gold standard. They're light, they last 10 years, and you can drain them almost to zero without them flinching. They cost a small fortune up front, but they don't die on you in 3 years because you forgot to check the water levels. I treated a lead acid bank like garbage once. Let's just say the garage smelled like rotten eggs, and my pride took a serious dent.
You mentioned a charge controller earlier. Is that the piece where you messed up the wiring?
That's the one. Think of it as the brain. There are two types, PWM and MPPT. PWM is old tech. It's basically a switch that turns on and off, but an MPPT controller. That thing is a magician. It actually adjusts the voltage coming from the panels to find the sweet spot so you get the maximum power possible. It's like having a tuner for your car that's constantly adjusting the fuel mix while you drive.
So, if I'm building a small workshop system, I shouldn't skimp on the brain?
Never skimp on the brain or the veins.
The veins?
The wires. This is where people get dangerous. They use thin little extension cord wires for a massive DC current. Because DC voltage is so low, only 12 or 24 volts, it's incredibly sensitive to resistance. If your wires are too thin or too long, the electricity literally gets tired and turns into heat before it ever reaches your battery. I once saw a guy try to run his shop on 16-gauge zip cord. The wires got so hot they started sagging like wet spaghetti. You want thick, beefy copper.
It sounds like off-grid isn't just a switch you flip. It's a lifestyle change for the shop. Are you actually going 100% off-grid? Or are you just playing with the idea?
For now, I'm hybrid. I've got my critical stuff, my workbench lights, my soldering station, and my sharpening stones, all on solar. But the big 220-volt planer, that's still drinking from the city straw. Transitioning is a journey. It starts with one panel and a sense of curiosity. There's a certain soul satisfaction in hearing a drill spin up and knowing the fuel for that hole came from the big orange ball in the sky rather than a coal plant 3 counties over.
I have to admit, seeing you get all geeky about voltage drop is actually kind of charming. But give me the real Tiger takeaway. For the person listening who's tired of their soaring power bill or just wants a backup for when the lights go out, what's the one thing they need to remember before they go buy a panel?
Don't build for the shop you wish you had. Build for what you actually use. Start small, get a 100-watt panel, a decent MPPT controller, and one good lithium battery. Learn how they talk to each other. Once you understand the rhythm of how much sun it takes to fill that battery, then you can grow. Solar is like a garden. You don't just pave the backyard in glass and expect a harvest. You got to tend to it. And for heaven's sake, double check your polarity before you flip the switch. My singed eyebrows are still growing back from the last time I got cocky.
Well, I think we've illuminated the subject enough for one night. Just promise me you won't try to solar power the lawnmower next.
No promises, Alex. I've already got the brackets and a roll of copper wire in the cart.